Question number 3. When dealing with a disgruntled customer or patient, what's the most important thing to remember?
Well, I think we all have the answer to that, and that's not to take it personally. Most anger comes from unmet expectations, fear, or, I think I heard it, frustration, and I'll slow that down. It comes from unmet expectations, fear, or frustration, not from you as an individual. A lot of times they have no problems with you, the individual, so know that. It's more of they have a problem with the system that's in place. A calm, empathetic approach can de-escalate almost any situation. And I always say, try these this 3-step response. Number 1, you want to acknowledge, I can see that this has been frustrating for you. When you acknowledge that this is an issue, then guess what? You got a better chance of them kind of bringing their level of frustration, that fear, or those unmet expectations down. And then number 2, clarify. Let's go over what happened so I can understand it fully. You have to make sure that you're clarifying the message so that they can understand what you're trying to convey over to them. That always brings it down as well. And then number 3, resolve. Here's what we can do right now to make this better. When we talk about the things or some of the things that we can do in the moment, we are trying to get them to understand we don't want to argue. We don't want you to be frustrated. We don't want an anger moment in place. We want to get to the bottom of the situation so that we can put a solution in place later on. That structure turns emotion into collaboration. You're shifting from defense to solution. And hear me, you got to be able to shift from defense to solution to make sure you're putting things in place to make it easier for you to manage the situation. So, you got to think of those things and remember that 3-step approach. And if you remember that, again, you should not have any issues when it comes to maintaining and pushing out good leadership when there are things are going on within your office infrastructure.
And then question number 4, what are some things leaders should never do when someone is upset or angry?
Well, hey, listen, if you go home today and you are upset with your spouse or your child, the first thing you don't want to do is you never want to argue with emotions. So, again, we all know the answer. Listen, we know the answer to a lot of these things that to the questions that are being asked. Which, they're great questions, but we overlook these things a lot of times, but we truly have the answers. So, logic doesn't calm emotion, empathy does. Also, you want to avoid deflecting blame or minimizing the person's experience. Phrases like, it's not a big deal, or that's just policy, can make people feel dismissed. And you don't want people to feel dismissed in situations. So, you got to make sure you're understanding that. Instead, listen fully. Sometimes silence is the most powerful tool. And I know it's hard for some of us to sit silent, but we got to learn the art of doing that. When you give people space to be heard, their tone often softens naturally. Then, once they've said their piece, you can guide the conversation toward a constructive outcome. Leadership isn't about having the last word. It's about creating the space where the right conversation can happen.